another. My book is written through the eyes and experience of a biblical counselor. As such, it offers useful material not found anywhere else, although I make no claim that it is infallible. Introduction. What comes to mind when you hear the word conflict? Do you see conflict as something that is always wrong, or perhaps something to be avoided at all cost? Or do you see conflict as something that can be good and even necessary, something that God Himself requires you to participate in and even to initiate at times? Do you see conflict as something that, if avoided or eschewed, may displease God? I recently had an opportunity to minister in Sao Paulo, Brazil. During my presentation, I used the word conflict to express the idea of two people being able to passionately disagree with each other without either one of them necessarily resorting to sin. My translator faithfully translated the word conflict into Portuguese. At the break, an English-speaking Brazilian brother came up to me and said that he had a doubt, a question as it turns out, about how a conflict could occur without sin. After I explained what I meant, he went on to explain that in the Portuguese language, or at least in Brazilian Portuguese, the word conflict necessarily connotes the employment of sinful forms of communication, sort of like our word quarrel. The Portuguese word for argument, however, does not necessarily involve sin. From a biblical perspective, to have a conflict with someone, or even to start one, is not necessarily a sin. Where, may I ask, does the Bible say that conflicts, arguments, debates, disputes, and disagreements are necessarily wrong and are, therefore, always to be avoided? Sure, generally speaking, Christians are exhorted to be cool-spirited, calm, cheek-turning, quarrel-abandoning peacemakers who make every effort to make and keep peace. In fact, that phrase is central enough that it once formed the working title of this book. And of course, on the other side of the same coin, we are exhorted to avoid being contentious, to keep away from strife, to not quarrel or fight or battle, and to avoid a dozen other things that are usually thought of as conflict. Yet conflict is a general term under which many biblical forms of good and proper communication may rightly be placed. For example, the process of restoring a sinning brother in Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 18, is essentially a command to initiate a course of action that, even as the text suggests, might result in conflict. Scripture speaks of additional conflicts, or confrontations, that Christians sometimes must initiate. Christians must at times convict. Jude verse 15. Rebuke. 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 2. Admonish. Romans chapter 15 verse 14. Resist or oppose. Galatians chapter 2 verse 11. And solemnly charge. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 14. People. There are even times when they may have to contend earnestly with people for the sake of the faith. Jude verse 3. These words all imply some form of confrontation, if not conflict. So to throw out all conflict is wrong is to, as the saying goes, throw out the baby with the bathwater. Indeed, sometimes, in order to obey God, followers of Jesus Christ are called upon to disturb the peace. Disrupting the status quo is something that Jesus and His followers were accustomed to doing. Those who proclaim the gospel, who put on the shoes of the preparation of the gospel of peace, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 15, publicly and privately ought to expect that, despite every attempt to make and keep it, the peace is often disturbed, sometimes even to their own physical detriment. The truth is divisive. When I use the word conflict throughout this volume, I do not necessarily mean something that is wrong or unhealthy. Indeed, as we shall see, sometimes conflicts are biblically necessary and therefore good.